welcome to SKG Pro Series Round 9 here at Spain. Once again, I'm Owen Baldero, taking you through all of the action. Apologies for the lack of camera once again. This will be the last week. After Sunday, I am done moving completely, hopefully. So this will be the last week of no camera, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, more importantly, we have a race on our hands, which is now about to get underway. And it is at Spain, as you see here. This is the track map. We have two DRS zones, a beautiful flowing just under 3 mile circuit. And it is going to be a fantastic race, ladies and gentlemen. 14 corners for our drivers to contend with today, as we will now actually head down to the track. Here we go. We now have qualifying underway. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello, Mark. Hello, Harley. Hello, Wixel. Hello, Tater. Welcome in. And we are ready to get underway as I need to... There we go. That's fine. Here we go, then. Out onto the track come our drivers. And luckily, because Spain is a relatively short circuit, you know, it's pretty easy for drivers to do 3 laps, of course. They usually do it on most circuits, but this is one where you could do 3, maybe 4 if you wanted to. Most will choose to do 3 because they will only, of course, have the 3 sets of soft tyres. And if I had to guess, softs probably won't last for our drivers here today to do an extra lap on the single set. Oh, as Pau Villegas picks up a 5-place grid penalty, so yeah, that probably will be a reset. That's probably going to be a reset if it is something that ends up being so. Go Lucas and Zach. Says Alex Santana. Yeah, you're not I see you're not racing today. So they are racing in your place clearly. Okay, so now we are on board with Monaco Merchant, what a name. And now Alejandro Loureiro gets a... What is going on here? How has Loureiro ended up in the barrier over here? Something big has just happened there. And I don't want to find out. Okay, it's now on board with Monaco Merchant. Into turn one he goes. Yeah, now flicking the wheel left immediately, and then you've got to get yourself over nicely as Tsuchibi retires, and that's a spin from Monaco Merchant. That's not going to do his tyres any good, and I think people retiring, I think this is going to be a reset by the sounds of it. Yeah, okay. We are having a restart. I'm just checking. Just got to check this. As I cannot find the SKG server for the life of me. There we go. Okay, yeah, it will be a restart. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a few moments. Once we have restarted, we will see you for qualifying in a few moments. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back finally. The lobby has been reset and we are now ready to go here in Spain. We have our first drivers coming out onto the track. First out once again is Monaco Merchant. There was a lobby reset because Force cockpit camera was on, is what I was hearing. So yeah, that obviously forced a lobby reset because no one plays cockpit cam. And if you do play cockpit cam, then well, you would have enjoyed this race, that's for sure. But the other drivers in this race wouldn't have. So Why is there a hype train? Yeah, there is a hype train. Force cockpit cam is wild. Yeah. Yeah. I don't really know how Force cockpit camera ended up on in 2026. But there we are. It did. So that forced the lobby reset, but, you know. I do a 110.8. Is it good? Compared to these guys, I have absolutely no idea, I will be honest. Now on board with Monaco Merchant towards turn 1. Down to 4th gear, using a little bit more curb than he did on the first attempt. And this time, hopefully, he does not spin his rear. He doesn't. He's able to get his car through cleanly, using a little bit of ERS. Deploying it just that little bit later, towards the end of the first sector. 21.275. 275 is his banker, excuse me. As now, through the left-hander, down to 3rd gear. Make sure you get good traction on an exit, which he does. Get a little bit of a toe off the Ferrari, then moving to the right to cut in for the left-hander. Make sure you don't take too much curb on the exit, because that curb is absolutely lethal. And now it's just that subtle tweak of the wheel in, and then down the DRS straight he goes, braking down to 3rd gear. 3rd to make sure he gets better traction, and now using his last little bit of ERS through here and then round this long swooping corner. Lovely stuff there from Monaco Merchant, looking pretty good at the moment. Is now around the final corner he goes, and up to the line. It's a 1:11.267 for Monaco Merchant. Alejandro Loureiro puts in a 1:10.9. Is now on board with Lucas Beisner. We go. He's starting his first lap of the session, and now on to Denis Kamensky for TES. In this one, to the line he goes, a 1:11.1. Now Zach Styler coming to the line as well. Florian van Zelter puts in a 1:11.0. Zach Styler puts in a 1:10.975, 0.04 of a second off of Alejandro Loureiro in P1. As we now head to, let's go to Malimo, who is now heading his way through the 3rd sector. Oh, Jack. I did say 6-7, yes, I realise that now. As up to the line comes Malimo, 1:11.046. Lucas MS up to the line as well, 1:12.060. Going to need a little bit more than that to put himself up the order, as we will now go to Lucas Beisner, who makes his way through the final corner, just flicking it through. Up to the line he goes, and it's a 1:11.115. Oh my god, I can't talk. 1:11.150. Finally, got it out then. My dad owns Microsoft. Interesting. Is he going to get him banned from Microsoft? Banned from Xbox. As round the final corner comes Red Mers. 1:11.2. 12th fastest at the moment. Things looking very tight as of so far. Just 2 drivers who are yet to set laps. One of them being the FVR driver of Rayan Bakar. Who's just making his way through the final sector as things stand. Now towards the start of his lap he will go. ERS deploying now towards the line. And this is his lap win. For a minute I thought we weren't going to get a timing from his from him in the top right, but thankfully we are going to. As that was a big lag spike then. As towards the end of the first sector he will go now. How does he stack up? He's on a 21.270, but he is lagging like it's no one's business at the moment. I can't tell if that's me or him. I think it's him. The FVR rumours are true. What are the FVR rumours that you are referring to? Now ran back towards the middle end of the middle sector. 49.757, not too bad at the moment. Now through the right hander he goes. It's looking pretty smooth at the moment from Rayan. It's been smooth, but the more important thing Is it fast? It's up to the line. Yes, it is fast. So 1:10.888. Pole position by about half a tenth of a second at the moment. Wojtek Steg. I've definitely butchered that name. Apologies if I have. Now making his way through the final sector. Up to the line. That's a 1:11.311 for him. 15th fastest at the moment, so he's going to need a little bit more than that in order to go up the order. As let's, whilst we're in this, take a look at the calendar, shall we? Okay, so my phone has a 3-minute ad. That is crazy. We're at Spain today, so after this, after today, we only have 3 more races left this season, ladies and gentlemen, and that is Monza, Brazil, and then Abu Dhabi. So we've not got too many races left this season, and we all know that Monza Turn 1 is going to be absolutely crazy, because Monza Turn 1 is always just a fever dream, simply put. Brazil, it's going to be one big DRS train, if I had to guess, and then Abu Dhabi, Lord only knows what Abu Dhabi will bring in this one. As now, it's just drivers in the pit lane at the moment. But I mean, look at how close that grid is. We have 2 drivers in Denis Kamensky and Lucas Beisner, both on a 1:11.150, the exact same lap time. And then they've only got Scott Holmes 0.02 of a second behind them. This field is incredibly close as things stand. Oh my god, Zaylen Bieder and Florian Fanzelt are both on the exact same lap time as well. And they're both TRT drivers. They literally set the exact same lap time as TRT drivers. That is unbelievably close. What is going on in chat? Yeah, so that's incredible. I mean, if you look at 4th down to 14th, that's what, a tenth, 2 tenths separating that. So it is ridiculously close as things stand, as you would expect from drivers of this caliber here in the Pro Series of SKG. As you now see, there's a bit of traffic making its way through the middle sector. There's a big old train, big old gaggle of cars, which we will try and find someone in. Here we go. See if we can intercept. As you see, Monaco Merchant doing the tire warming technique. I'll be honest, I actually didn't know this was the strat until about 2 months ago, until about a month and a half ago or so, when I first started doing this. What is it with F1 games and having the weirdest tire warming strategies physically possible? As Pascal Gill not pushing at the moment. Tachubi is pushing, however, as through the first sector he goes, using a lot of battery towards the end of the first sector. He's 0.06 of a second up, which, to be fair, that 0.06 alone would put him up to, what, about 14th? And if he can find a little bit more, he'll go even higher, of course. It's now down to 4th gear. Lovely through there. Ooh, a little bit of a wiggle. Probably scrubbed a little bit of time there. Took a little bit too much curb and invalidated as well. So that is going to be the end of Tachubi's lap there. What about Noah Raza, who is 3.5 tenths nearly up on time? He's now coming up to a little bit of traffic, which hopefully will either speed up or get out of the way, which it looks like it has. So Noah Raza won't be impeded by anything there. As up to the line he goes. A 1:11.035 puts him into 4th place. Lost about 0.06 of a second there, actually, in the final sector. Unfortunately for him, Malimo now making his way towards the line. He was down on time in the 2nd sector and has actually invalidated there. So that is the end of his run. He will peel into the pit lane. Florian Fanzelter down there in 8th place, was 0.03 of a second up, and is still pushing as he heads towards the end of the 2nd sector. He is a 1/10.5, just over, up on his previous best, so he is improving, and that 1/10.5 could be big because that would put him in the ballpark of Alejandro Loureiro, who, as I mentioned his name, goes into P1, so he won't be on the ballpark of Alejandro Loureiro because that bar has just been raised by an extra 0.2 of a second. But where will this put Fanzelter as he comes up to the line? 1:10.925 puts him into 5th place, just behind Zach Styler by about 0.03 of a second. Now we're gonna go to, let's go to Logitech Steg, puts in a 1:11.097 there. I think everyone pretty much done with laps at the moment. I think maybe Pau Villegas, one of the only guys left on a lap here. Now through the final DRS over lap he goes, and he is a 10.5 down, so he is not pushing. Scott Holmes isn't pushing. Dennis Kamensky isn't pushing either. So it looks like most people have finished their runs here and are now going to come into the pits ready for their final runs in a few moments' time. As we head towards the final runs, it is Alejandro Loureiro. The top 5 is Alejandro Loureiro, Zaylen Bida, Ryan Bakker, Zach Styler, and Florian Fanzelter. That is the top 5 as things stand. And whilst we are whilst we're in this sort of little bit more lull, we are going to move ourselves over to the championship standings. Okay, here is the championship standings after Silverstone. So it is Florian Fanzelter leading the way after Silverstone on 101 points in the drivers. Aaron Ramirez in second on 56. Dennis Langrock in third on 53. Alex Santana fourth on 50. Then it's Victor Widler on 39. Lucas Beisner on 38. Of course, those three all are VNT drivers, Venturi Esports drivers. And then Alejandro Loureiro in 7th on 34. Tsubi in 8th on 32. Tomasetto Elia in 9th on 32 as well. And then it's Oliver Knott in 10th on 29. But the one that really matters, obviously, is the Teams Championship. And it is led by Tata Marez at the moment on 206 points. 50 points ahead of TES, who are in second on 156. AMR Esports next in third. Just 11 points back from TES in third place. And then it's Venturi Esports only a point behind AMR on 144. RSC then a long way back in 5th on 38. And then only a point away from RSC is BRC in 6th on 37. ET8 on 32. FST in 8th on 31. Then it's ONB on 39th. And then in 10th place is FCT with 10 points. And that is the standings after Silverstone. We're heading towards, of course, the business end of the season. Now, this is where it all matters for the drivers in this championship. As now we have Florian Fanzelter on an outlap. He's actually the first to come out onto an outlap. The next is an RB, quite the way away. And actually, Fanzelter might get caught up in a little bit of traffic because he'd come out significantly earlier than anyone else. Could that potentially get him caught in a tiny bit of traffic? Hopefully, these drivers should get out of his way. But if you look at how many cars are now coming out of the pit lane, Fanzelter is going to hit big traffic unless he is obviously doing a double outlap. He could well be doing a double outlap, which with how he's accelerating, yes, he is going to do a double outlap. Okay. So Florian Fanzelter not going for it on this one. So he is, just gonna use this lap to warm his tyres even more, get himself used to it before he goes for his final push later this stint. Right now with Tsubi, who is in 17th place on a 1:11.322. We've seen in previous races he's capable of more than this. The question is, can he put in the lap to elevate himself, I suppose, up the order that little bit? As now here we go. Tsubi starting his final run of this session, I believe. We can't see how much time there actually is remaining, but now it's towards turn 1 he goes. Still got plenty of ERS left to burn here. Does Tsubi, turns it on for a minute, turns it off again, and then turns it back on once again, draining down to about 45%. 0.07 of a second up in the first sector. Now round the sweeping right-hander he goes to this hairpin, to this left-hand hairpin, through there nicely. No troubles on exit either. It's a really smooth exit for Tsubi. As now towards the flat right-hander he goes. Now DRS deploying all the way down this straight up to the split. He is 2.5 tenths nearly up on his previous best. That is going to put him in the ballpark of P9 and P10, or sorry, P10 probably more likely. But can he find a little bit more in his final sector here? As towards the line goes Tsubi, the first to set a final run. It's a 1:11.001. That is 7th place for him. As we will now go to Alejandro Loureiro, who is only just starting laps. So we'll move away. D'Amico up to the line, goes 4th place, a 1:10.880. Rayan Rasa has invalidated his laps. That is, Rayan Bakker has invalidated his lap. So that is his qualifying over. Florian Van Zelter having a little bit of a snap on the right-hander. Lucas Beisner puts in a 1:10.776 to go on pole by 0.06 of a second. Alejandro Loureiro down by about a 100th of a second here. He needs a little bit more in the middle sector to try and beat that VNT driver. As towards the middle sector split he goes, and he's finding 0.08 of a second, exactly what he needs to go back on to pole position here. As now, this is it for Alejandro Loureiro. Just got to bring it home at a roughly similar pace to what he did, and it will be provisional pole. As up to the line goes the AMR driver, and it is pole. It's a 1:10.675. On to pole he goes. But for now, Zach Styler goes into the pits. Tsubi is obviously on an in-lap. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of qualifying. Alejandro Loureiro pulled it out of the bag when it mattered the most to go on pole by 1/10 of a second there. Zaylen Bieder third, Zach Styler 4th. Only 1,000th, by the way, separating the VNT driver of Zach Styler and Zaylen Bieder. There, that is incredibly close. Go VNT, says Joris. Yep, VNT doing well. 2nd and 4th there for themselves, as Zach Styler does now retire, and that commences the end of qualifying there. So one final recap of the grid order. Alejandro Loureiro 1st, Lucas Beisner 2nd, Zaylen Bieder 3rd, Zach Styler 4th, D'Amico 5th, Rayan Bakker 6th, Florian Van Zelter 7th, Malimo 8th, Noah Raza 9th, Tsubi 10th, Scott Holmes 11th, Dennis Kamensky 12th, Monaco Merchant 13th, Paul Villegas 14th, Wojciech Steg 15th, Luca Tessera 16th, Pascal Gill 17th, Red Mers 18th, and then in 19th place is Lucas MS. Okay, we are going to go to the B-Row back screen for a moment, and we will be back in a couple of moments, ready for the race, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. 33 laps of racing are coming your way in a few moments. ladies and gentlemen, we're just a few moments away from the start of the race here at Spain. Qualifying was incredibly close between the entire field, and now the race promises a similar pattern. Hopefully, everything towards turn 1 goes fine. This turn 1 can be a little bit questionable. And we saw in F1 Esports, of course, the turn 1 was a bit of a nightmare for some drivers, as we now go to 5 red lights. And we're racing here at Spain. It's a good start from Alejandro Loureiro on pole position. Can we please get a good camera angle? Yes, we can now. Finally, Zaylen Bieder up to 2nd place on the inside of Lucas Beisner for 3rd. And the VNT of Zach Styler also challenging his teammate for 3rd. But they do tuck in, as now Ryan Bakker up to 5th place there. And now Denis Kamensky side by side with Noah Raza towards the end of the first sector. They're moving around. Denis Kamensky is going to just about maintain it. Scott Holmes now trying to go on the inside of Noah Raza. Down the inside he will go now. The Aston Martin of Wojciech Steg looks like he was going to try and get involved for a moment, as now Noah Raza trying to now under pressure from Scott Holmes once again. Now down the inside goes the FVR. He's going to be on the outside line for the next one, and he backs out of it. He is on the hard tyres. Wojciech Steg is on the soft compound tyres, ladies and gentlemen. As let's get everything we need up. Okay, so all 3 tyre compounds represented on this grid. Denis Kamensky moving himself past Malimo up to 8th place there. Now Alejandro Loureiro completes the first lap of the race. And all 3 tyre compounds, as I said, represented on this grid. Denis Kamensky now down the inside on D'Amico for 7th place. Gets it done cleanly. He needs to make quick work of the field ahead of him on those softs, because they will go off pretty quickly. As now Ryan Bakker getting himself back past Florian Vanzelter, who looked to have completed the overtake for a few moments. Holy F1 Esports influence. Yeah, 3 people running the soft tyres in this one. Most people choosing either the mediums or the hards, as Wojciech Steg up to 9th place past Malimo, who, if we look at position changes, has dropped down a couple. Wojciech Steg on those softs has had a really good start to this race, up 6 positions. So a really good start from him. And now looking, D'Amico now once again looking to try and get back past him. Can't quite do it, so they have to settle for 8th place once again. People really want to be like them. Well, I mean, yeah, I suppose they do. At the end of the day, they're the people at the top level. You know, they're the 20 at the top of F1 Esports, I suppose. As Wojciech Steg sets the fastest lap of the race on those soft tyres, and now Zaylen Bieder looking down the inside into turn 1, just about backs out of it. But it looked like for a moment Alejandro Loureiro was going to have a bit of an uncomfortable situation. Thankfully for him, it has been avoided, at least for now. And if you like DRS trains, ladies and gentlemen, then DRS trains you shall get, because I feel like this race is just going to be one big DRS straight. Or DRS train, rather. One big DRS train from, like, first down to, well, the back of the grid, most likely. As now Lukatus Serra on those hard tyres. Made an overtake stick a few moments ago. And actually Alejandro Loureiro, as I was saying that, is breaking away a little bit. What the gap was 8 tenths, it's come down a little bit now, thanks to the influence of DRS in that middle sector. And it's now creeping back up once again to about 7 tenths. So I think Loureiro is far enough away that he won't be under pressure from Bieder down this straight. Bieder does have a little bit more ERS available to him than Loureiro, but the AMR driver is now on. He's on the recharge, and he was able to stay ahead quite comfortably. As now we move down to Zach Styler, the second of the two VNT Ferraris, who sit 3rd and 4th at the moment. So these VNTs in a pretty nice position, to be fair. They're in a position where they can work together. You know, they've got 2 cars ahead of them. they can try and pick their way through together. Since they are so close, they have a luxury that other teams don't. I mean, Loureiro and Pau Villegas are 13 positions apart at the moment, and then Zaylen Bieder and his teammate, oh, he doesn't, does he have a teammate? Yes, he does, yeah, is Florian Van Zelter, 2nd and 6th at the moment, so there's 3 cars in between them. So, Soft already stuck, yep. That's generally what happens when you get big DRS trains like this, isn't it? I mean, I'm just a commentator, but it's something I have seen in other leagues as well. You know, when people take the gamble on those soft tyres, if they get stuck, it's just over for them. As you can see, the 3 soft runners actually are all driving in tandem at the moment. Van Zelter, Kamensky and Steg all in 6th, 7th and 8th in this race, but they are pretty much stuck behind the FVR driver of Rayan Bakar in this one. Now going back to the top, Loureiro looks incredibly comfortable at the moment. Bieder not quite been able to get close enough to put the white bull under any pressure as things stand. And we are just currently locked in one big DRS train, and it will most likely remain this way until we hit the pit stop phase, when it may start to split up a little bit. Although it could just end up in a DRS train once again, as Malimo moving out, trying to go out and moving over, trying to go a little bit more defensive. In the end, didn't really need to. Maybe was trying to cool his engine, pulling out of that slipstream in order to do that. As now we see D'Amico gaining on Wojciech Steg ahead of him. Not quite close enough though to go for an overtake on lap 6 of 33. So still plenty of laps left in this race for these drivers to get something done. But at the top it is still flying formation as things stand. As now surely we're hitting the point where the softs start really falling away now. Surely it's around this lap, next lap. Of course, I'm not an esports engineer or connected at all to esports, but surely it's lap 7, lap 8, somewhere around this benchmark, that the softs will begin to fall away a little bit compared to the mediums, and then eventually, of course, to the hards as well. Now Scott Holmes on those hards, looking very racy behind the FCT of Noah Raza, using a little bit of ERS to try and get himself alongside towards the end of the first sector. Going to be able to go around the outside. If he can keep it alongside, he will get the inside line, but he can't quite keep it there. But will he go for a late braking maneuver? He tries to, but Noah Raza brakes late as well and manages to keep himself ahead in 11th place at the moment. But Holmes looking very quick behind Raza, so it could be a matter of time for that Sauber before he gets overtaken by the McLaren of Scott Holmes here. As once again, I have a 3-minute advert on my other monitor, which is interesting. Now we will move to Wojciech Steg. Soft tyres once again cooling his engine a little bit, pulling out of that slipstream, but they are of his teammate, but they are well and truly stuck, TES. They're stuck behind Florian Van Zelter first of all, who in turn is completely stuck behind the medium runners of Rayan Bakar and Co ahead. As Zaylen Bieder actually very, very close now to the back of Alejandro Loureiro. who could be under a bit of pressure for the first time this race, is now Scott Holmes side by side with Noah Rauser. He did manage to get the overlap, and he is going to stay on the outside for the next corner. Noah Rauser is going to back out of that one. And that is the FVR driver up to 11th place. He has Molimo ahead of him in 10th, the next point paying position. So he is going to set himself after that very, very soon. Is now heading towards the top. Gap is about 6.5 tenths. Let's watch down this straight. How much does it come down? Here we go. DRS open now. And heading down the straight, it's going to close by... He wasn't using the full slipstream. Closed by about 5 tenths. So let's say Zaylen Beda, if he's within 6 tenths, he can force an overlap. Which is very doable, but you know, you want to try and overtake in a more safe manner than diving on the inside at turn 1. You know, you could lose positions. We saw it happen in F1 Esports. It was Jarno Opmeer and Otis Lawrence, I believe, who got tangled. That was, though, caused by, of course, desync. How you manage to have desync at a LAN event is beyond me, but there you are. Is now moving down. We're going to head to Zach Styler, sat behind his teammate of Lucas Beisner. These guys, everyone at the moment, I think it's fair to say, is genuinely just stuck. Not really any overtakes going on. We're just waiting for the soft tyres to blink. They'll be the first to come in, obviously. As here we go, Florian Van Zelter into the pits already. Probably going on to the hard tyre. I mean, mediums won't make it to the end. If I had to, no, there's no chance mediums make it to the end. So it is probably going to be hard compounds for Van Zelter. And yes, it will be. Onto the hard he goes. The first of the soft runners to switch. And Van Zelter going to the pits is actually... Ryan Bakker is actually a second clear of Dennis Kamensky here. So Kamensky will need to do a little bit, push a little bit to try and get himself back in to that DRS range, which he has just about done, but not comfortably as things stand, as that's a little bit nicer. Around 7.5 tenths, that's fine. But he'll want to get that a little bit closer in order to maximise the slipstream. Now lap 11, we're now coming towards lap 11 of 33. Do Kamensky or Steg come into the pit lane on this one, or will they stay out? So Steg is going to come in, first of the TESs to come in, and we'll see how strong that undercut is going to be compared, Van Zelter compared to Steg here. So into the pits comes Steg, and Van Zelter is now making his way around the last corner as Red Mers has left the session, has lagged out, I believe. So here comes Florian now down the main straight, and he's going to come out, what, about 2 seconds ahead, potentially? Somewhere around that base benchmark. 1.9, yeah, just under 2 seconds. So... undercut is pretty good. It's about 1.3 that lap. So some ground could be made here, but of course, Van Zelter and Steg do need to make use of these tyres like now, because of course those on mediums are gonna come charging after them once they come into the pits, and they will have those newer tyres available to them, so they need to make use of this undercut now. Come on, TRT, says Amos. TRT in second place at the moment. Their overdrive Florian Van Zelter has come into the pits, of course, and now Dennis Kamensky comes into the pits as well on those softs to the hards. We'll see what is the undercut compared to his teammate going to be like. Of course, Steg was behind was behind his teammate before they came into the pits. As now out they come. And Kamensky will slot in just behind his teammate. So that was probably about second. The undercut ain't bad here. As now into the pits, you see, comes D'Amico, the first of the medium runners to come into the pits here today. And now towards the top, it's still Loureiro leading, but Bieder is much closer than he was a few laps ago. Who's engineer for P1? I couldn't tell you. I will be completely honest. I mean, I can try and find out, but I'm actually not 100% sure. Unfortunately, I'm not. We're not quite here at Driveline Media as advanced as the real broadcast, like the F1 Esports broadcast, where they get the engineer chats. I think that's a really cool addition that they've had recently of the chats with their engineers. So you get a real insight sort of into the other side of F1 Esports racing, the strategic element, I suppose. But I'm actually not 100% sure who Loureiro's race engineer is. To be completely honest with you, as I mentioned him, Loureiro comes into the pits. AMR owner, all right. They got 4 cars to manage, yeah. Okay. Loureiro into the pits. Let's see. What about Fanzelter? Where does Loureiro filter out in comparison to Fanzelter? So Florian comes out just behind. Oh, sorry. Loureiro comes out just ahead of Fanzelter. So Florian's undercut was not quite strong enough to get into the net P1 as Red Mers retires from the session. He was able to get back in, but he has retired now from the session. I think his AI put him onto mediums, unfortunately, so he's come around and retired from this race. As now, Bieder into the pits, Beisner into the pits as well. These two now. Only one driver remains on those medium tyres. So now we will go to Bieder. Onto those hard tyres he goes nice and comfortably. They are nice and easily going to go to the end of this race. Now here comes Loureiro. And Bieder is going to come out behind Florian Fanzelter. So that undercut, and Wojciech Steg has undercut Bieder as well. So really good stuff for Bieder. Sorry. So really good stuff from the Aston Martin and the TRT in this one. Loureiro still has the net race lead at the moment. Nine seconds now. Loureiro has a nice patch of clean air ahead of him. 9 seconds is the gap. And of course, these hard tyre runners are probably going to be going to about lap 19 or so, at least. So they still have a little way to go on that compound yet. So it's not over yet, but Loureiro is absolutely charging at Lucas MS at the moment. He's gained 2 seconds on this lap. For all intents and purposes, Alejandro should drive out of DRS to secure the win. I mean, yeah, that is true. It's just a question of, does he have the pace to get out of DRS? He definitely does. Well, hopefully we see it. I mean, he has full lap tyre advantages. Yes, it is. It is massive. It is a massive advantage to have in your pocket. So I sent to Florian Puncture. Really, Alex? Interesting. I mean, yeah, he is gonna drag. He's gonna have to drag those hards a very long time. So it's not out of the realms of possibility, a puncture, to be fair. It's not a million miles away, as Malimo does now come into the pits. He did 16 laps on those medium tyres, and we'll switch to the hards, and we'll have the newest hard tyres on the grid. Arguing in chat going on once again. Okay, moving to Loureiro once again. 4.1, 4.2 or so is his gap at the moment to Lucas MS. So that advantage is, or that gap is really starting to come down now. Of course, Loureiro on the much significantly newer tyres. He has stopped. Those ahead of him have not, so he's just going to fly on up to the back of them and overtake them potentially before they even have the chance to stop. 71 watching. Yes, 72 people. 72 people watching. Really, really good numbers at the moment here today. Unfortunately, we're in one big DRS train, first down to fifth, and then the rest of the grid pretty much in one big DRS behind them for those that have stopped. So, but anyway, Florian Vanzelter falling behind a little bit there. He will gain once again with DRS, but he's going to have to use quite a bit to try and stay within a DRS. I mean, actually, Vanzelter has slightly better looking ERS levels than Loureiro at the moment. Easy win for Alejandro. I mean, as things stand, it definitely looks good for him. That's fair to say. The two cars ahead, behind him have older tyres than him. There's sort of question marks around whether Florian Vanzelter can go to the end of this race. Alex Santana predicting potentially a puncture for him, which I don't think is out of the realms of possibility. So it is currently looking good for Loureiro, but Florian Vanzelter very close now to the back because Loureiro is stuck behind now Lucas MS. And I mean, he'll want to stay behind and try and go past on the DRS straight, because otherwise he could potentially just be swallowed back up. And he is going to stay behind at least for now, but is this going to open the opportunity for Florian Vanzelter to try and have an attack towards turn one? Loureiro gets the much better exit. Now Pau Villegas into turn one, gets himself past as well, past to Tubi, and now round the outside is going to go Alejandro Loureiro, brakes much later, and up to 6th place. And now this is where he needs to turn on the burners. This is where he needs to go. He's got himself past Lucas MS, and now this needs to be where he needs to just dump everything. Use everything he has. Now down the inside goes Florian Vanzelter. He just about forced the issue, but it's just about enough for Loureiro to get out of DRS. So really well executed from the AMR driver there. And now 1.3 is the gap, as now Wojciech Steg also getting himself past Zaylan Bida as well down the inside on Lucas MS. And Lucas MS dropping down the positions, and now Lucas Beisner getting past as well. Here comes Zach Styler, and Lucas MS has had one hell of a lap, and now here comes Dennis Kamensky as well on the inside line towards the end of the middle sector into the third. 13th place it is for Lucas MS. He was 6th place at the start of this lap, and he now drops down to 13th, and now 14th, because there goes Rayan Bakker as well. So not a good lap for Lucas MS there, who was peeling into the pits and very nearly got a shunt in the back from D'Amico there. As now going back to Florian Vanzelter. 2 seconds is the gap now. So he has broken away. GG's FCT guy decided to defend. Great strat from him. Yep. And that could well be the end of the battle for the lead, because now Loureiro has a 2.6 second advantage over Florian Vanzelter for the net race lead here. And I don't think Luca Tessera, Monaco Merchant, Lucas MS, none of those are going to be close enough to challenge, even on those medium tyres. They're not going to be able to carve their way through the pack quick enough, so this could well be a race over, and this could be a easy win for Alejandro Loureiro to just cruise to now, because 3.2 is quite the gap he finds himself in, as now Scott Holmes and Tsuchibi both into the pit lane. Holmes are now coming out, Tsuchibi coming in, and these guys are going to drop pretty much to the back of the pack, and Luca Tessera is going to get Tsuchibi just about, I think. Here we go, yes he will, and Tsuchibi will drop to 16th place in this one. And the last car yet to pit is the AMR driver of Pau Villegas. His teammate 7.5 seconds behind him. Loureiro is winning this with like 10 seconds to a second. That could well happen. It could be more. 4.2 at the moment. So that gap is flying up. GG AMR, I can't lie. Yeah, very, very clever from Loureiro there to wait to use Lucas MS to try and create that buffer, and he was able to use the slower car to run, and it worked out all perfectly for him there. As Pau Villegas does now come into the pits, so Alejandro Loureiro here back into the net race lead, and very, very comfortable here. So now it's a battle for second place, as Wojciech Steg very nearly had a think about a move, as now Dennis Kamensky going for it on Ryan Bakker, who has to take to the escape road to avoid a collision, and now comes out behind the two V&Ts, filtering back out where he was, and now around the outside goes Dennis Kamensky and gets himself past this time. But what about here? Malimo moving himself up the grid, as now down the inside goes Ryan Bakker. A very late lunge, but does get it done, as now there's a free wide here between Malimo, Noah Raza and D'Amico. Malimo just about gets himself in front, but what about the two behind? Noah Raza just pulls in front of D'Amico, who drops to 11th place. Not often you see a free wide, as now here comes Scott Holmes round the outside of D'Amico. Those new medium tyres propelling him up the grid, and now down the inside he goes, nice and comfortably up to 11th place. D'Amico won't have the grip to fight that one and has to drop back to 12th place. As now Scott Holmes, can he go for a move on Noah Raza here? He has the ERS, he has the tyres, and at the moment he has the pace. He's gaining, he pulls out to the inside line, and under braking will get this one done nice and easy as you like. Up to 10th place for Scott Holmes, and he, out of all of the medium drivers at the moment, he is the one charging. Zaylen Bida switching with his teammate Vanzelter, and up to 3rd place goes Bida. It's now Holmes down the inside on Malimo up to 9th place. Malimo has a little think about a move, doesn't go for it. Holmes has to take avoiding action of the big gaggle of cars ahead of him. The two V&Ts sort of in the cork in the bottle of that, as now down the inside goes Ryan Bakker, really forcing an overtake here. He just about gets alongside, and now on the outside will have to go onto the curb. That will slow his exit, and now Zach Styler has the better traction off the corner, but now round the outside goes Zach Styler, which will switch to the inside line. Scott Holmes behind, trying to get involved in this one. I think Ray and Backer potentially trying to fight it to help his teammate, as there's a yellow flag somewhere. What has happened? That is Luca Tessera, I believe, dropping down the order. Yes, it is. But now moving back to Scott Holmes. Is his teammate just going to pull on by and let him through? The FVR boys potentially going to work together. So now here we go, Scott Holmes on his teammate on the inside. Easy as like up to 7th place for Scott Holmes. But in front, it's 8 seconds as D'Amico retires in the pit lane. 8 seconds is Alejandro Lorero's gap from all of that. So even with a charging Scott Holmes, he's not going to be able to make that 8 seconds up, I don't think. But now, is he going to try and move on Zach Styler? He does, round the outside. These mediums really working for him, trying to switch to the inside. He's not quite going to be close enough to make it work. How was Lothar gapped 8 seconds? No idea. I mean, Bida, Steg, and Fanzelt were fighting as down the inside goes Scott Holmes' late lunge. He's going to get switchbacks now by the VNT of Zach Styler, but he will unfortunately have to drop back for him to drop back to 7th place. Very clever driving there from the second VNT. Cars that haven't pitted, so gap happened. Yeah, it was Lucas MS was the cork in the bottle in that one, as now Scott Holmes once again going to try a move on Zach Styler. Down the inside he goes, which switches to the outside, but with the better traction, the better tyres, moves up to 6th place. This could be a P2 here for Holmes as things stand, because those mediums are really working for him. Noah Raza retires in the pits. And Florian's soft hard race pace is absolutely peak. I mean, yeah, he's sticking with at the moment quite nicely. So not bad from him. I mean, let's look at position changes. He's still up 3 positions. Wojciech Steg, by the way, has had an absolute blinder. He's up 12 positions in this one. So he is flying. Up from 15th on the grid to 3rd place is a mega effort in a field of this pace. As now Paul Villegas moving himself up to 11th place in the background there. But now, once again, Scott Holmes. Sarcasm. Alright. I mean, it's not terrible considering the tyre difference, I suppose. But I'm still getting used to commentating drivers of esports pace, so what I know is a little bit skewed, I guess. As now down the inside goes Scott Holmes, not quite able to make it work. Bison are cutting the line off just about within the realms of cleanliness. And now Scott Holmes with the better tyres, trying around the outside, just enough room for him to keep it around the outside. As now that will switch to the inside, but Lucas Bison on the outside is a very, very solid line through here. And he's getting stuck a little bit, is the McLaren from the back of Florian Fanzelter, but down the inside will go Scott Holmes, and that will be 5th place secured for him. Okay, it's now on to lap 27 of 33. Go these guys. Scott Holmes just using this to recharge a little bit. But by the way, 10 seconds is the gap at the top now. Lorero has just driven away. He's just disappeared, simply put. He is having the race of his life here today. As now there, Dennis Kamensky dropping down the grid. What has happened? We can't quite see, unfortunately, but he has dropped down the field quite a bit. Now Monaco Merchant and Malimo side by side in the middle sector, and it is Monaco Merchant who comes out on top there. But now Malimo will have an opportunity to try and go for it once again, but The FST does pull away on the straight there, so a little bit more ERS available to him probably. Now around the final corner we go. Holmes very close now to the back of Fanzelter, who is starting to fall away a little bit from Steg and Beda ahead of him, but still Holmes will use this to charge once again. Maybe those mediums not giving him the same pace they were a few laps ago. As now Holmes has a little think about it, but doesn't go for it through there. Okay, now we're going to go to Pau Villegas, who is also making his way back through the pack after staying out on those hards. The longest of anybody. He's in 9th place at the moment, and with cars on hards ahead of him, he will need to try and pick his way through a little bit here. Now through turn 1 he goes. Malimo now fighting with Tachubi, gets himself passed up to 11th place for now, but will the RSC driver try and go for it relatively soon? As now down the inside goes Luca Tessera on those medium tyres, older medium tyres than Tachubi, but made it look like Tachubi wasn't even standing. As now Florian Fanzelter side by side with Scott Holmes on the outside, squeezing the FVR all the way to the outside, which gets some grass on his wheel. And Holmes has to drop back to 5th place once again. He couldn't turn the car as quickly and efficiently as he would have wanted, and that dropped him back to 5th place once again. Now Pau Villegas down the inside, a little bit of contact with Ryan Backer there. He does go past, but will there be something said about that in the post-race, I wonder? As now Fanzelter has started lap 30 of 33, and are the rest of our drivers now coming through to start it as well. As FCT Lucas MS picks up the first 3-second track limit warning penalty of the race. Unfortunately for him, that is not really going to affect anything though. As I say that, Ryan Backer also picks one up for FVR there, as he has a little think about a move on Pau Villegas. A very late lunge. It's good though. There's a little bit of magnet locking the game engine. Pau Villegas needs to leave a little bit more space than that. Down the inside goes Ryan Backer, which forces Villegas off track, and this is getting dicey, and around goes Ryan Backer in all of that. Down to 12th place he goes, 13th even, and his race goes from bad to worse. It all kicked off there. I think there was a little bit of tempers flaring from that, and that is the end of any hope Ryan Backer had of points in this one, as Monaco Merchant now also picks up a 3-second. So we've had 3 track limit penalties in a lap. Average F125 defense. I mean, you're not wrong to an extent. As now Malimo gets himself passed up to 8th place. Luca Tessera also following through into 9th. Monaco Merchant losing 2 positions. 2 positions up, down to 10th place. As now Tachubi has gone round. What on earth has happened there? We're not quite able to see. But now Wojciech Steg still behind Zaylan Beda for 2nd place. Of course, not for the race win, because Alejandro Loureiro, in a completely different world to everyone else, 13.8 8 seconds, basically, is the AMR driver's gap. He has just completely checked out and hasn't looked back since, using Lucas MS to run away from the rest of the pack. Now on to lap 32. The drivers behind will go. And we are heading towards the point where they will begin to fight. Next lap, I'm sure Wojciech Steg will be far more aggressive on the attack than he was previously. Tacciubi retires from the session. And I can't see where he's retired. He's not showing in the pit lane, so he must have left at the same time potentially. But anyway, 15 remain in this one, with the battle for the race win settled. What about the race for P2 and the rest of the cars behind? Scott Holmes here, looking very close to the back of Florian Vanzelter, who of course is on the oldest hards on the entire grid. And if you look at them, they aren't looking particularly very good. They're not looking awful, but they're not looking great either. Gimme DRS games, says Tater. I mean, we could see DRS games. Not down here, it doesn't look like we will. As here we go on to lap 33 with these drivers. Big snap of oversteer for Wojciech Steg. And oh, off he goes and out he goes. Was there a puncture involved in that? The way the car just went from underneath him looked like a puncture, yeah. And that is it for Wojciech Steg's race. And that puts TRT drivers Zaylen Bieder and Florian Vanzelter both on the podium together. But has Scott Holmes got something to say about that? Potentially on this final lap. Denis Kamensky moves himself past Monaco Merchant. By the way, for 11th place there. Wojciech Steg got a puncture and his car just disappeared from underneath him in a second. As we will go to Loureiro in a second. We'll watch down this DRS straight. Is something going to happen between Holmes and Vanzelter? Here we go. I don't think Holmes is going to be close enough, so we will go to Loureiro. What a race from the AMR driver of Alejandro Loureiro, who will come across the line to win here in Spain in a different postcode to the rest of the grid. What a race from him. 15 seconds dunked on the rest of the grid. Second place will be Zaylen Bieder. Third will be Florian Vanzelter, championship leader. P2 and P3 for TRT. Very good points for them. Scott Holmes charged through the pack on those mediums to come fourth. Lucas Beisner fifth. And then we will read through the rest of the grid in a few moments' time. Amazing teamwork with Lucas, yeah. Very, very good. What a race from Alejandro Loureiro. Alejandro on another level, yeah. Completely different universe compared to the rest of the drivers here today. Absolute masterclass from him. And here is the podium for round 9 at Spain. What a race it was. So here we go. One last recap of the results. Alejandro Loureiro P1, Zaylen Bieder second, Florian Vanzelter third, Scott Holmes fourth, Lucas Beisner fifth, Zach Styler sixth, Malimo seventh, Luca Tessera eighth, Paul Villegas ninth, Denis Kamensky 10th, Rayan Bakker 11th, Monaco Merchant 12th, Lucas MS 13th, Pascal Gill 14th, and then we lost Wojciech Steg on the last lap to Tacciubi a few laps ago, and then Noah Raza, D'Amico, and Red Mers were all not classified. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, next week we head to Monza for the Italian Grand Prix. I'm sure that will promise chaos in the race. Monza is absolute carnage at turn 1, it's fair to say. And then we head to Brazil and Abu Dhabi to round out the season. Thank you very much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, here for round 9 of SKG Pro Series. And we will be back next week for more at Monza. Thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you later. Goodbye.